So, after 30 or so minutes, the update has finally been updated onto my PS4 version of Sonic Frontiers. So you know what that means? The entire journey is not done yet. So, hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen? It is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice. And I'm from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos, as you probably expected at this point in time. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and finally the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we've essentially manage able to finish up everything for the sake of the forms of the Battle Rush mode, and overall, that was actually quite an interesting experience, all things considered, despite the fact that it actually took me a couple of attempts off-screen, especially concerning about for the fact that I have to able to get the entire S-rank run, so just in case I can able to unlock the next difficulty, which appears to be extreme difficulty, which, to be honest, I don't think I could probably able to actually decide to do the extreme difficulty, because, well, that'll just make things a little bit more lengthy, and on top of all that stuff though, it'll just make things a little bit more complicated and difficult at the same time. So, relatively speaking, oh well, we actually got even more save slots. I'm guessing it's because, well, as soon as we go back onto the main game, because today for this video is about the fact that we're about to begin the final portion of Sonic Frontiers, and that's mainly because, after all, the actual Final Horizon DLC free update has just already been released ever since about a couple of days ago, despite the fact that it was originally going to be released on Thursday, or maybe because I keep on thinking about the forms of the American version, because unfortunately though, the UK version has to wait until 1 AM, so as a result, it's going to take place in midnight, so pretty insane if you ask me. So because of this though, yeah, as you can tell about the fact that we're going back into Ouranos Island, despite the fact that we've already completely done with everything during the forms of this particular run through, and oh, I did not notice the actual star icon has now been in a different placement. So I guessing because of how the fact that despite the fact I just got interrupted by the forms of that gosh darn caterpillar guardian right there. But we'll take him on just to ensure about the fact that we'll try to able to practice the forms of, or generally speaking though, it's about the fact that we still have to able to obtain those blue orbs before we continue, and once we're done with that, we can pretty much guarantee to able to flee the battle, just in case about the fact that we can able to just move along, because as soon as you're able to actually go all the way back to the beginning portion of, or the starting location for the sake of the forms of Ouranos Island, you do realize about the fact that once we double check on this particular map, and basically we get ourselves a new icon. So as a result, that could be something more related to the fact that we might able to actually traverse into the alternative version of Ouranos Island. Mind you about the fact that the entire island remains the same, except there are some slight significant changes around here. So, but even then though, and also that particular ring portal right there does look familiar to me, because as a result it's the exactly the same ring portal as we experienced not only for the likes of the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, but also Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie as well. Except the noticeable differences here is that obviously about the fact that it pretty much leads us to the alternative version of that exactly the same environment. So, with that being said, this pretty much leads us to yet another story. So because of this though, yeah, as soon as you're able to actually realize about the fact that the game tells you can probably recommend clearing the game first before you're diving right into this, especially because concerning about the fact that it does feel a bit slightly similar to the forms of how it does in on Mario Plus Rapid Sparks of Hope for its DLC department, especially concerning about for the fact that the game always tells you need to recommend playing through the normal game first and then able to actually complete the entire run through in the process. But either way though, that's saying something I suppose. So even then, let us begin another story, to be more specifically, the Final Horizon DLC update. So, I wonder what some things they'll bring up something new to the table, I wonder. Well, you probably already know, thanks to the forms of that particular trailers and all that stuff. So even then, let us begin.
Hold it, Hedgehog!
Before you embark, there is one other scenario to consider.
All right. I'm listening.
Moments ago, your friends sacrificed their corporeal forms to suppress your cyber corruption and return you to this dimensional plane.
They were so close to being free again, and they gave it all up for me. I don't care how many islands or titans it takes, I'm getting them back this time.
Please, no tedious speeches about the superpower of teamwork.
Of my millions of calculations, there was one so remote and unlikely I did not consider it. However, as things stand, it could be the one to save us all.
Well, I'm all about beating the odds. What's the plan?
I can reverse your friends' efforts and restore them. They would then seek out the Chaos Emeralds for us. I can stabilize your cyber corruption for a brief time, and then I would guide you on how to convert that corruption into power so that you may end this conflict and save Father.
And save the world, too, right?
It is his to conquer, so yes.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I like that plan. Let's do it to it.
Be forewarned, the trials you face will be grueling, and we will have precious little time.
Please, I live for time trials. Let's go already.
I just tried to save you. I'm not doing it again.
Sonic? What's going on?
I know it's been rough, and that things are confusing, but I need you guys to just follow my lead. I need you three to find the Chaos Emeralds, while I take care of something else.
All right. We trust you. You can count on us.
Piece of cake.
Get on with it already! It's coming.
So yes, as it turns out about the fact that we're gonna be able to have the ability to take control of not only Amy, but eventually at some point with Knuckles and Tails. So yes, relatively speaking though, is about the fact that, like we've already established that before, that basically though, this is actually the first time ever since Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, where basically not only Amy finally becomes playable since in Sonic 06, but also stabilized with Tails and Knuckles in a 3D environment. Because as a result, technically speaking, I was about the fact that, relatively speaking, that the reason why they go through like Tails, Knuckles, and Amy for those other playable characters, because of the defaults that they continues that tradition for its playable counterparts for those characters. To be more specifically, ever since the journey forms of Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, and also Sonic Boom, Fire and Ice, in addition with Styx the Badger, of course. And in addition to that, though, with the most recent game coming up, which appears to be Sonic Superstars, and of course Sonic Origins Plus. So even then though, that's saying something, I guess. And also means about the fact that since we're now going to be exploring for the alternative version of Ouranos Island, this also means about the fact that we need to fulfill the entire map again. So because of this though, and also about the fact that we actually come across into two unexpected Cocos, not only does it fill some new parts of the map, but also about the fact that it gives us some individual skill points. So meaning about the fact that as you can tell, we now need to able to learn certain skills again. Except this time, Amy, Tails, and Knuckles do able to have their own unique abilities. Like for instance, Amy can able to actually utilize a card attack, even though mind you, we're going to be only able to equip one of those abilities for right now, which is of course the side loop. So not only does Sonic enable to actually perform a side loop, but also with Amy, Knuckles, and Tails specifically, just to ensure about the fact that you can able to once again reveal certain treasure marks here and there, and on top of all that stuff though with certain other things here and there as well, including by the forms of the returning challenges, during the forms of the island challenges that we need to once again traverse through. So yeah, it has been a very long time since we actually come across into those specific island challenges you can able to actually participating in for. So, but either way though, that's saying something I guess. So, anywho though, so yeah, let's talk about the forms of how the fact that, well, keep this in mind, that since we're going to be playing as Amy, Knuckles, and Tails during the forms of this particular run, keep this in mind though, they're all basically in cyber forms. So yeah, that's as far as I can usually think about this for a second time. Although it is possible until eventually later on that you can still able to play as Sonic and during at some point or another, but for the time being we're going to have to able to, you know, select Amy for the time being, because as far as I'm aware we do need to once again search for the Chaos Emeralds. So relatively speaking though, remember when I said this before, during the course of the forms of the Ouranos Island for the first time, ever since during the forms of sometime in July or June, I have no idea. But as a result, that was generally the final time we're going to be collecting the Chaos Emeralds. But as it turns out, I was completely wrong. Especially, this is actually the true definition of the final time we're going to be collecting the Chaos Emeralds. So, I think generally speaking though, this is our 5th time collecting the Chaos Emeralds. So, except this time around though, we're going to be playing as these different characters. So, that makes it a little bit more interesting, especially because concerning about the fact that a lot of people got hyped about this. And also we actually come across into those of another new types of Cocos, as you can see, which appears to be Lookout Cocos. I think that could be something related to the forms of later on though, because obviously about the fact that we're not going to mention about the specific points just yet, so. And also keep this in mind, oh, we actually got ourselves the returning portal gears ever since in the original version of the Ouranos Island. So, you know what that means? If you think that we're basically done with the cyberspace segments, well, as it turns out, we're not exactly done with the cyberspace segments either. So this means they're able to actually add it in even more. And in addition to that though, it'll make things a little bit more difficult. And on top of all that stuff though, for what I've heard, that, actually, we'll explain more details about that in a moment. So, and this is where the point where the fact that the game starts to get tremendously difficult in certain situations. But that's just because, certain, island challenges, like this one for instance, including buddy forms of the later ones coming up, that, my god, the difficulty is about to ramp up a lot. Mainly because of the forms of certain requirements, and on top of all that stuff though, as I mentioned this before, once we're able to actually start to experience the cyberspace segments from time to time, my god, certain missions and objectives will go a lot more differently this time around. So, although, relatively speaking though, is about the fact that in addition to that, well, something tells me they're able to actually bring back the exactly same obstacles, not just by the forms of well, I don't know about you, because it has been a very long while since I actually have last played Sonic Forces, at least ever since on the Xbox One version, so I somehow managed able to, well, completed that. In addition with the PS4 version, something tells me about the fact that one of those two specific items will make its return ever since in Sonic Forces, so, which you probably already know what I'm talking about. So, anyway though, how it works for Amy in this particular game? Well, apparently though, she now starts to utilize those fortune cards. I mean, something tells me about the fact that after the events of this particular opening cinematic scene of Sonic CD portion of Sonic Origins, gee, no wonder why she loves cards so much. So, but even then though, that's for a topic for a later time. I think something tells me I don't think I can make it in time. So, yeah, believe me, those challenges are ridiculously tough this time around, especially because I have no idea, but for some reason about the fact that my slide loop just refuses to work. So, hopefully I'm also able to try this again, but hopefully we're able to be as quick as we possibly can. So, but even then though, I can totally see why this update is, this particular update exists now. Mainly because about the fact that most people complain about the forms of the difficulty in the base game to make things a little bit more self-explanatory and easy. Well, apart from a couple of exceptions, which is of course the Tetris blocks and all that stuff. So, I can totally see why about for the fact that the actual main advertisement for the sake of the forms of this particular DLC, not just by the forms of, you know, the ability to play as all new playable characters, but also about the fact that we can able to experience with the forms of new challenges, and on top of all that stuff though, with entirely new story. So because of that though, yeah, it's almost like a what-if scenario for the sake of the forms of what we're originally trying to able to experience Ouranos Island to begin with. So, alright, there we go. So we basically accomplished that. So, yeah, a few things I want to explain for this point today. Before I continue experiencing buddy forms of the Final Horizon DLC update, today's date, of course, is the 2nd of October today, in some cases in 2023 today. Naturally speaking, though, is about the fact that, oh, we actually realize about the fact that we've now come across into a different colored variation of those specific treasure icons. Something tells me about the fact that we need to learn the next move for not just by the forms of Amy, but also with Knuckles and Tails. Specifically, Cyber Amy, Cyber Tails, and Cyber Knuckles. So, because usually, relatively speaking, though, is about the fact that they're still going to be able to be in Cyber form for this entire time, throughout the majority of this particular run. So, although keep this in mind though, is about the fact that there's only one island we can able to experience during the forms of this particular DLC, and that is of course, Ouranos Island. So I don't think it's possible we can able to experience Ouranos Island, or Iris Island, or even Chaos Island as a matter of fact. So, yeah, it's just only going to be on this island only. So just to ensure about the fact that we can able to experience, you know what I'm saying, the alternative version of that particular island. So, but I digress. So, few things I want to explain for this point today, and that it appears to be about the fact that, well, happy 3rd anniversary of the game's release of Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One version. So, yeah, happy 3rd birthday to the likes of Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, despite the fact that I still managed to get myself my Switch version, just in case I can play the game on the go, of course. And, whenever I look back on it though, it is, without doubt, one of the greatest platformers ever, for the sake of the forms of the Crash Bandicoot alike. Despite the fact that it is pretty tough to able to actually get everything in the game, most notably 106%. So as a result of that particular matter though, I can totally see why about the fact that Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, is without a doubt one of the hardest games to able to actually get every single, not just by the forms of the achievements, but also trophies as well. At least depending on what version of the game you're playing. So because of that though, yeah, relatively speaking though, is about the fact that, yeah, I can totally see why a lot of people get frustrated with the forms of 106%ing Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, but it's also because of how the fact that it does have some very strange collusion detection for breaking all these box crates. It bears repeating on the PS4 version and the Xbox One version back then during the forms of the lockdown year. And I'm not exactly sure if the patch updates did somehow manage able to fix that problem. Well, mind you, because I no longer have the PS4 version just because of this long, drawn-out load times. And on top of all that stuff, though, is about the fact that, well, exponentially speaking, it was just a way of how the fact that I personally think that I'm perfectly fine with the Switch version for the sake of time, despite the Switch version might look a bit rough around the edges, especially noticeable during the forms of this opening scene sometimes, especially because of how the fact that every time whenever I boot up the game, for some reason there's no sound cues for not just by the forms of the Activision logo shows up, but also Toys for Bob logo as well. So because of that though, I just have no idea how the Switch version does look a bit rough around the edges. So And yeah, something tells me the cyberspace segments does return, so even though that's the perfect example of why that every once in a while we'll start able to collect some even more portal gears, just for the sake of the forms of just trying to able to see certain new challenges of how this particular DLC has to offer. So, but either way though, that's pretty insane if you ask me. So, and I think something tells me about the fact that we still need to able to learn this next move as far as this is concerned. So, anyway, in addition to that though, is about the fact that for those of you probably wondering, happy 25th anniversary of the very first DreamWorks animated movie, which is Ants. So yeah, happy 25th anniversary, Ants. Especially while looking back on it though, despite most people seem to able to do not like it as much as the Forms of a Bug's Life, but I'm not gonna lie though, Ants is probably the most underrated films I've ever seen, especially because while looking back on it though, I still managed to enjoy it even to this day. But first, let's go ahead and investigate with the forms of this particular little thing right there. Although first off, let me go ahead and upgrade my next attack, which appears to be the Card Stomp. So, basically, certain movesets might be felt a bit too familiar, except the fact that with different attributes or something like that. Although, mind you, about the fact that this is my first time experiencing this. Well, mind you, I have pretty much briefly experienced this before on the Switch version. But either way, though, it does take me a bit of a while to able to get used to with all these new mechanics and all that stuff. Oh, okay. I have no idea why it pushes me back for some reason. There's the most annoying thing about the forms of this particular DLC, I'm not gonna lie for saying this, is that, well, every time whenever you do manage to able to upgrade your new attacks or anything else like that, or learn those new moves, basically though it's about the fact that you do get pushed back at one point, and there's no resuming point that you're currently standing on. So, yeah, that can be pretty stingy though sometimes, but either way, I think something tells me is about the fact that I get a strong feeling we might get less time, and on top of all that stuff though, we need to be fast. So, I think essentially what I'm gonna do is that we'll go ahead and focusing on the plot significance for the time being, and then relatively speaking that was about the fact that we can pretty much guarantee to able to do some side content until for later. So, just like the forms of how it does it on the main base game, except the fact that we can now have the ability to able to take control of not only one character, but 4 other playable characters as well. So, either way though, that's actually super top notch and everything.
Why isn't it here? The vault I found was empty. I'll try another. You should too.
What good are these vaults if they don't do their job? I'll find them. It's just a matter of time.
Oh yeah, another thing is worth bringing up is that every time when Amy does a double jump, or to be more specifically a triple jump I might add, basically though, it's kind of annoying about the fact that much like in Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, in the multiplayer department, if you play as Amy, during the forms of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle in multiplayer, that she keeps on saying, "Wah," and then basically that happened the same thing on here. So, kind of annoying at times, but it doesn't seem able to bother me at one form or another, but still, it can be pretty aggravating at times. But either way though, and also about the fact that I just have a lot of nostalgia memories for Ants. Like, I do know every dialogue, and on top of all that stuff though, I remember so many scenes back in the day on the VHS version, and on top of all that stuff though, it is quite an exciting adventure in my opinion. So, but that's just the way how I feel about it with my opinions of the film. I'm sure that a lot of people do have their different opinions, but either way though, that's saying something I suppose. Especially concerning about the fact that, well, we'll admit though, the visuals today is okay. Like, as a result of that particular matter though, it's still aged okay enough, but back then it is actually quite impressive though. But even then though, that's saying something. So, but either way though, that's as far as I can usually say about that. So yeah, happy 25th anniversary of Ants. So I can't believe it's been 25 years ago since that film first came out on the American theaters. So yeah, that does seem quite impressive for the sake of time, especially because concerning that was the first ever DreamWorks animated movie to ever existence, especially concerning about the fact that it still looks pretty weird about the fact that it feels like a similar situation as the video game competition between both Nintendo and Sega back in the 90s, where basically though that Disney and DreamWorks are also competing in a competition for both of those bug-related movies, which are Ants and A Bug's Life, but in the end, A Bug's Life did somehow earn the most box office earnings back then, so... But either way, another thing I wanted to address something about this as well, is that, recently, F-Zero 99 has just been revealed some more tracks, thanks to the forms of that particular free update or something like that. Like, for instance, they added in, let's just say, 5 new tracks. So as a result, those are Mute City 2, Port Town 1, Red Canyon 1, and White Land 2. So I think I miscalculated. So as a result, it's only for like 4 tracks. So oh well, no big deal. But at least I did somehow manage to try my best to describe about any of those specific things as much as possible. But still, I'm just very excited to actually try out this particular DLC update. So, now for what I've heard, a lot of people seem to have found this particular DLC much harder than the forms of how it does on the base game. Well, even much harder than the forms of how it does it on the action chain challenges, or obtaining some new Cocos, and pretty much everything else for that desires. So, but I will try my best if I was able to actually get used to with the forms of multitude of playable characters, because for some reason, I keep on getting used to with the forms of playing as Sonic a lot more. Mind you, because we've already managed to max out our levels count for Sonic anyway, during the course of the base game. Luckily though, you can still to actually experience the maxed level for Sonic anyway, during the course of... Oh, okay, there we go. Almost died there, because thankfully, if you manage to hold down the X button, or the B button on the Switch version, or the A button on the Xbox versions, basically you can to slowly glide downwards, so just to ensure about the fact that you can to safely try to do not die and stuff like that. So, and oh Jesus Louise, I found it was very cool about the fact that not only does Sonic to actually boost, but also Amy does the boost, and even eventually Knuckles and Tails as well. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool, especially because this is actually the first time ever that Tails, Knuckles, and Amy to learn the boost. So yeah, that's actually super dope and everything. So, but either way though, let me go ahead and choose this particular attack right there. So just in case about the fact that we can to hopefully try to guarantee to just do with the forms of this more attacks and stuff like that. So just in case about the fact that, and also for I've heard anyway, that certain Guardians are actually much tougher this time around. So yeah, wish me luck for to try to deal with these guys, because even then though, I think to me though, these guys are kind of like the equivalent to the data versions for the Organization 13 battles for the likes of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, including Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind DLC. In fact, kind of think about it though, this particular Final Horizon thing right there, it feels very similar to me as the forms of how it does it from the likes of the actual Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind DLC most of the time, especially concerning about for the fact that you're to experience kind of like exactly the same ordeal, except the fact that you're to actually come across into different things to do. So, but anywho though, oh, and speaking of Sonic Superstars actually, and that's what appears to be about the fact that the good news about the forms within the Switch version of Sonic Superstars, that's what appears to be about the fact that the game will run at 60 FPS on the Switch version. So that's actually pretty good stuff, especially because, well, relatively speaking though, that for the majority of the forms of certain Sonic games to be released on the Switch, we keep on usually come across into 30 FPS for certain Switch games for Sonic games. Well, there are a few exceptions here and there, like for instance with Sonic Mania, Sonic Origins, and occasional Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 for its gameplay footage and all that stuff for certain events. And on top of all that stuff though, now that Sonic Superstars will be now running on 60 FPS on the Switch version, so that's a good stuff. Mind you about the fact that the visuals might look a bit downgraded compared to the forms of how it does it on, you know, multiple versions of the game, like PS4 or Xbox One or PS5 or Series X, Xbox or Xbox Series X to be more specific. So either way though, let's go ahead and utilize this next ability, which this will be important, especially noticeable if you really want to go after certain extras as far as this is concerned. So, but even then though, I think that could be also applies for the likes of Knuckles and Tails eventually, so. But even then though, that's as far as I can usually think about that, I guess. So, because usually kind of thinking about it though, like I said before, is that the Final Horizon DLC update does kind of reminds me of a similar style as the forms of the Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind DLC, mainly because the forms of, usually in Remind DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3, you do have the ability to able to play as those extra playable characters. To be more specifically with the forms of, let's just say, you're still able to play as Sora for certain scenarios, and especially noticeable, eventually you will play as Riku, and on top of that, Roxas, and I think that's also applies, oh, there's also the actual install base thing right there, so yeah, I forgot to able to do all that stuff though, so but even then though, I'm also able to do that at some point, so once I basically try to able to get used to with the entire, you know, Final Horizon DLC so far, so, but anywho though, so and also with the forms of maybe Aqua, and finally Kairi for the sake of the forms of the final bit, for the sake of the forms of the continuation of the story. Spoiler alert for those who have not experienced for that particular point just yet. Well, mind you about the fact that that particular DLC has been out for about 3 years ago now, so yeah, I guess that probably explains it, so. Anyway though, so, and also, for what I've heard anyway, it's about the fact that, relatively speaking, that Devil May Cry is also getting the anime treatment as well. So yeah, kind of interesting to be able to actually have ourselves the video game adaptation anime is about to be coming. So yeah, that does seem pretty interesting. So, oh, and speaking of stuff related to DreamWorks, as far as I'm concerned, there is actually a new attraction, or to be more specifically, a place to live, which as a result about the fact that we can able to actually experience that you can now able to live in Shrek's swamp now. So because of this though, it's kind of interesting, especially because it's almost exactly like the ones in the film. So as a result of that particular matter though, it does look pretty interesting. So, and there's also another anniversary thing that just came out to be, and as a result, happy 19th anniversary of the game's release of Crash Twinsanity for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. So yeah, happy 19th birthday for Crash Twinsanity, especially until by that time until next year, that Crash Twinsanity will be eventually become 20 years old until next year. So, pretty crazy kind of thing about it. Despite the fact I have not played that particular game that much either, but that's just because I try to able to actually get used to with the forms of two character at the same time kind of gameplay mechanics, like take control of the forms of Crash and Dr. Neo Cortex for certain scenarios, and also I still need able to try to get used to with how to obtain these gems, especially because I keep thinking about the forms within the classic Crash Bandicoot games. Whenever you do manage to break all these box crates and stuff like that, usually you get a gem. Once you make your way to the very end of the level, well, in Crash Twinsanity is no exception to that. So because of that though, yeah, I still need to able to try to get used to with that particular formula, so oh well, no big deal. But at the very least though, that some people seem to say that Crash Twinsanity, while looking back, it still feels pretty underrated for the sake of the forms of how the game actually excels at. So, but even then though, yeah, that's as far as I can say about it, so anyway, in addition to that, there's also about the fact that they're going to be bringing up a yet another collaboration event for Pokemon Go at some point during the forms within, let's just say until this Thursday coming up. That's what appears to be about the fact that they're doing a collaboration to go alongside with the release of Detective Pikachu Returns. So, yeah, it looks like that Pokemon Go is actually getting a collaboration thing is going on. So, either way though, that's as far as I can usually describe about it, so... And it's about to start during at some point during the first day of the 5th of October, presumably speaking. Now I believe it'll last until the 9th of October on Monday, so... Yeah, that's what I could really ask for, so but even then though. Speaking of Pokemon related though, is that it's been 25 years ago since Enduring Forms have been a North American version of Pokemon Red and Blue versions came out on the Game Boy, so yeah, pretty crazy kind of think about it, able to actually celebrate the 25th anniversary of the North American release of Pokemon Red and Blue on the Game Boy versions that came out, especially because concerning about the fact that back in Journey Forms have been 2021, technically we've already celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Pokemon as the entire franchise itself, despite the fact that in the original Pokemon Red and Green, as far as I'm concerned, that those two originally came out in Japan, so, but either way though, that's saying something I guess, so... Oh boy, we're able to actually obtain some more Cocos here and there. So something tells me about the fact that, as you can tell, that we managed able to actually start able to realize that we're now on to level 1 variant for the likes of the forms of, not just by the forms of Amy, but at some points with Knuckles and Tails as well. So this means we have to level up our characters all over again. So usually, if you start this particular DLC up, basically though, we actually got ourselves level 1 of ring capacity, as well as speed, and defense and attack. So of course, about the fact that in order to able to level up your attack and defense is pretty much exactly the same as the forms of how it does on the base game. Like, you still need to able to obtain the seed of power and the seed of defense. And as far as the ring capacity and the speed, as far as I'm concerned, you still need to able to obtain rather, certain amounts of those Cocos. But the biggest differences between the forms of in the base game compared to the Final Horizon 3 DLC update, as far as I'm concerned, well, I don't think it's possible we can able to bump into Big the Cat, because as a result, despite the fact that it's actually pretty too easy when it comes to able to grinding certain Cocos and the Seed of Power and the Seed of Defense on top of that. So yeah, it's kind of weird about the fact that we're probably not going to be able to experience that much stuff for the sake of the forms of Big the Cat's fishing, and on top of that with the actual barbecue thing during that specific period as well. So, but I'm sure we're able to try to get used to with the forms of a lot of grinding is for the sake of time, especially because concerning about the fact that, and also much like the forms of how it does it in Journey forms have been Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind DLC, as far as the main story as far as I'm concerned, well, basically though, you only get able to experience not just by the forms of Keyblade Graveyard, but also with the forms of the final area that you can actually explore around, whilst it kind of feels like exactly the same treatment as in this as well, except the fact that in this particular another story campaign, you only get a chance to experience one of those islands you can able to explore, so... But either way though, yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. So, but even then though, I will able to actually admit it though right away is about the fact that the actual momentum feels a bit kind of weird to get used to at some form or another, but like I said before, I will try my best able to actually get used to with the actual character's playstyle. But regardless of everything else though, I will say that this is probably without a doubt the best thing that's ever happened. For the sake of the forms of Sonic Frontiers for right now. Although, despite the fact that the difficulty might start to ramp up to a ridiculous degree, so as a result for that particular matter though, is that with the forms of platforming in mind, that as you can tell about the fact that we're now able to come across into certain new platforming obstacles we can now able to traverse through. And in addition to that though, is about the fact that there are going to be some of those. Also, I just realized about the fact that during the course of certain spots of Ouranos Island, as far as I'm concerned, something tells me about the fact that those familiar towers does return ever since in Horror Island, which despite the fact that in Journey Forms have been a base game, you need to able to deactivate or shut down 6 towers, whilst usually relatively speaking, I get the strong feeling in this particular version of Ouranos Island in this particular DLC, as far as I'm concerned, that you can now able to actually go into 5 towers. But I don't think it's possible we can able to complete those just yet, because I think something tells me we need to do some bit of story things first. So because eventually at some point about the fact that we will be able to come across into, without a doubt, the hardest aspect, or should I say, the toughest aspect about the forms of this particular DLC by far, especially how most people seem to able to address that. In fact, I obviously did manage to see a couple of live streams during the forms of this particular first experience of the Final Horizon update, and let me tell you, they got pretty much frustrated in one of those sections coming up, which you'll see why as soon as we're able to actually get into later uploading schedules for this particular game itself, especially because this is a perfect example of why. That obviously about the fact that Tiana, she recently finished up with the original Castlevania censored yesterday, so that's the perfect example of why I don't think it's possible we can able to do a dedicated marathon of Castlevania games. So, and that's the perfect example of why that this particular continuation portion of Sonic Frontiers is about to exist. So yeah, I can totally see why that this particular playthrough will take much longer, or should I say even more longer than the forms of how it does it on the likes of Super Mario Odyssey, because as a result, well, despite the fact that I have no idea how long these specific parts will go to be at, for the sake of the forms of trying to completely done everything, for the sake of the forms of the Final Horizon DLC update. So, but I'm sure it will be a pretty much an interesting experience, all things considered, like I said before, but even then though, we'll have to wait and see what happens there, so yeah, apparently we're about to go back in here, and despite the fact that relatively speaking though is about the fact that normally in a base game that you get yourselves the next Chaos Emerald, but something tells me there is no Chaos Emerald in here.
Maybe I can get some insight with my fortune cards. Huh. All the cards are telling me is that things are obscured and danger approaches. I knew that already. Wait, seek insight from unfamiliar places? Ooh, the Coco! Of course! They should be able to help.
So yeah, I believe something tells me is that one of those Chaos Emerald placements is gonna be quite obscure indeed. So yeah, that's something.
Rouge, the Babylon Rogues.
Ha! Knuckles referenced not only Sonic Adventure 2, but also Sonic Riders apparently, so that's something I suppose. So with that being said though, I think we should probably be ending off this point right here, so join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers, for the sake of the forms of the Final Horizon 3 DLC update. And that's what appears to be about the fact that we're still going to be able to continue exploring around the alternative version of Ouranos Island as Amy, and hopefully we'll get the Chaos Emerald. So I'll see you guys until Wednesday. Later, fellas.